The Art of War for the Modern Mind, Episode 2, Strategy and Silence, The Power of Observation. Prologue, Before the Strike. We live in an age that rewards reaction. 1,000 opinions shouted through glowing screens. Everyone eager to speak, few ready to listen. We post, reply, defend, delete, and do it again. As if movement itself were proof of meaning. I've done it too. That moment when the mind burns to answer and silence feels like defeat. But Sun Tzu warned centuries ago, if you know yourself and know your enemy, you need not fear 100 battles. He didn't say speak faster. He said no. Knowing begins in quiet observation. The general who waits in silence reads the field, while others exhaust their troops. The mind that can sit still sees what frantic minds overlook. I've learned this the hard way. There was a time I confused urgency with importance, sending messages I later wished I'd swallowed, making choices that felt brave but were merely loud. Silence isn't emptiness, it's reconnaissance. It's the pause before precision. The ancient warriors studied the wind before releasing an arrow. We study the algorithm, but both require patience and attention to unseen patterns. The one who moves first often moves blindly. The one who moves last, with awareness, rarely needs to move twice. Strategy begins in stillness. Act 1, the hidden noise. There is a battle that no one names. The battle between reaction and restraint. Most days we wake straight into it. The phone lights up. The mind grabs a weapon of words. Without noticing, we are already marching into a digital war. I've caught myself scrolling as if it were meditation, but it never is. It's stimulation disguised as significance. The first rule of any battlefield is to see it clearly. And the first failure is distraction. Sun Tzu wrote that the wise commander appears calm and thus confuses his foes. That calm is not weakness, it's control. It's knowing that every unnecessary movement costs energy. The same is true inside us. Every reaction burns focus we could spend building something that lasts. So we practice waiting. Not because waiting changes the world, but because it changes us, the wisdom of waiting. Patience is not the absence of action, it's the preparation of strength. Every impulsive decision we regret, the sharp email, the cutting reply, the deal made out of fear of missing out, was a victory handed to noise. I remember the first time I held a reply overnight instead of sending it. By morning, half the anger had dissolved into understanding. That small delay saved a friendship. That's how tiny the margin can be between conflict and clarity. One breath, one night, one act of stillness. The warrior's patience is not passive. It's the tension of a bow drawn, but not yet released. The waiting itself becomes strength. Tool 1, one breath before response. When emotion surges, pause. Inhale once, fully. Feel the weight of that air, the body choosing awareness over instinct. Most battles end right there. I've seen executives, fighters, parents, all masters of reaction, lose everything because they refuse that single breath. And I've seen calm souls win impossible fights by simply not rising to bait. A warrior once told me, "The sword is most dangerous when still." He meant that readiness without haste is real power. You don't win by swinging first, you win by swinging last and only once. Tool 2, the delay of mastery. In modern life, patience feels radical, but every delayed gratification is discipline taking root. The archer doesn't shoot when he's excited. He waits for wind and balance. So should we. I think of the times we rushed projects, conversations, decisions. Every time the work suffered because ego wanted the applause of speed. The world will always reward movement, but mastery rewards timing. Sun Tzu called this foreknowledge, the quiet wisdom born from observation. He said, be extremely subtle, even to the point of formlessness. That is patience embodied, invisible yet unstoppable. Personal reflection. We've both learned that silence has a cost at first. People may think you're uninterested or unsure, but over time, silence becomes reputation. They start waiting for your words because you only speak when it matters. I used to fill silence with proof of knowing. Now I try to let silence prove itself. The difference feels like night and dawn. It's strange how the same pause that once felt like fear now feels like focus. Every day gives us a choice: react like the crowd or wait like the commander. Waiting doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing everything, inside. That's why patience is the first discipline of self-mastery. The moment you stop rushing to speak, you start hearing what truly needs to be said. Closing of part 1. So take that breath. Hold it for the length of awareness. Let it remind you, stillness is not absence, it's presence without panic. When you understand that, you've already begun to win the first battle. Act 2. Observation as strategy. Most people look, few actually see. Observation isn't eyesight, it's insight. The quiet ability to read what lives between the lines. We've both had moments where just watching taught us more than speaking ever could. When you really see someone, their rhythm, their patterns, the small hesitations between words, you begin to understand who they are beneath performance. The same rule that guided the generals of old still guides awareness today. Know your enemy and know yourself, and in 100 battles you will never be in peril. But enemy doesn't always mean another person. Sometimes it's our own impulse, our distraction, our unexamined thought. To observe is to see the field before stepping onto it. And in modern life, the field is your mind. I remember sitting in a cafe once, phone in hand, heart restless. I was about to argue online over something I barely cared about. Then I caught my reflection in the dark glass, shoulders tense, jaw tight. That's when it hit me. I wasn't fighting a stranger. I was fighting the part of me that needed to win. Observation reveals the real opponent, seeing patterns. Sun Tzu wrote, "In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity, but you only find it when you slow down enough to notice the pattern." Every system, every person, every storm has one. The angry friend who always softens after silence. The market that breathes in cycles of fear and greed. The heart that repeats the same mistakes until awareness interrupts the loop. Look long enough and chaos begins to repeat itself. That's the gift of patience. You start recognizing rhythm where others see randomness. Tool 3, study before you strike. Before reacting, ask, what's really happening here? What am I not seeing? That question has saved me more times than courage ever did. Observation isn't passive. It's preparation. It's mapping the terrain before battle. Tool 4, silence your bias. The hardest thing to silence is the story you want to be true. We've learned that watching without judgment is an art in itself. Detach like a scientist. Watch like a warrior. When you can look at a situation without immediately defending or desiring, clarity arrives. Personal reflection. We've noticed this even in small things. A pause in a conversation reveals more honesty than 10 explanations. A quiet look across a table can solve what 100 texts can't. Observation slows the blood, it cools the ego, it returns the world to scale. Sometimes I watch the city rush past, cars, people, screens, and I wonder if anyone actually sees anyone anymore. To see is to respect. To observe is to honor the moment before taking it. That's what strategy really is. Respect for timing. When you start to respect the rhythm of things, you move with life, not against it. Act 3, the strength of restraint. Restraint is not repression, it's mastery. Power without control is just noise. A blade that cuts everything breaks. A mind that reacts to everything shatters. The art of restraint is the art of deciding what deserves your energy. I've learned that every reaction has a cost. Attention is currency, and the world spends it for you if you don't. Sun Tzu said, "He will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight." That's restraint summed up. Knowing the difference between movement and meaning. The invisible wins. Tool 5, practice the invisible win. The argument you don't start, the insult you ignore, the temptation you walk past. No one applauds these victories, but they build the quiet confidence that no stage can give. We've both had days where walking away felt like losing, only to realize later it was the smartest move. In martial arts, beginners swing fast. Masters move less, but land precise. That's restraint in motion. Listening as leadership tool 6. Turn listening into leadership. When you really listen, people relax. They feel seen without being judged. And once they relax, truth shows itself. The loud demand respect. The quiet earn it. Noise is a need for validation. Silence is confidence without audience. A true leader doesn't announce power. He embodies it. I remember a mentor who rarely spoke. Meetings would end, and he'd say just one sentence, "The right one?" He taught me that clarity is worth more than volume. Personal reflection. There's a moment in every fight when you feel the urge to prove yourself. That's ego in disguise, wearing armor of insecurity. If you can breathe through that moment, you win without drawing a sword. We practice that daily now, in arguments, in work, in creation. The discipline isn't to speak well, it's to speak only when it adds value. The samurai called this zanshin, the state of total awareness before and after action. It's not about tension, it's about readiness without restlessness. Restraint is the bridge between anger and understanding, between power and peace. And the longer you walk that bridge, the lighter your armor feels. Closing of part 2. In a world addicted to reaction, restraint is rebellion. The warrior who stays silent in provocation is the one who has already won. Hold your voice like a sword. Draw it with care. Speak with purpose. Then return it to its sheath of peace. Act 4. The sound of mastery. Silence has a weight. It presses gently on the chest until you remember how to breathe again. Noise is panic wearing confidence. Stillness is certainty wearing humility. A warrior once told us that when battle begins, the loudest fighter is the one most afraid. We've seen the same thing in meetings, in cities, on screens. Volume often hides fear. Silence hides preparation. Sun Tzu wrote that supreme excellence is to subdue the enemy without fighting. That's what mastery sounds like. Not a clash of swords, but the quiet of understanding before anyone else has noticed the pattern. We've learned more from quiet defeats than from noisy victories. The project that failed because we rushed. The message we sent instead of sleeping on it. The moments we filled instead of feeling. All of them taught us to value pause over push. Tool 7. The empty chair. Once a day, sit alone. No phone, no music, just the sound of your own pulse. That empty chair across from you isn't loneliness, it's dialogue. It's the part of you that waits patiently to be heard. When you sit in stillness long enough, thought turns into witness. You start noticing how emotion arrives, performs, and leaves. You start recognizing how few battles actually need your sword. We've made this practice part of our routine. Some mornings it feels pointless. Other mornings it feels like meeting an old friend, the version of us that existed before urgency took over. That's the chair where strategy begins. Tool 8. Speak only when silence can't say it. Better words are arrows. Once released, they don't return. A warrior knows the cost of every arrow in his quiver. We should know the cost of every sentence we release. Before you speak, test the silence. If the silence still holds, keep it. If the silence breaks under truth, speak gently. We've both been guilty of talking just to prove we were still in control. It never worked. Control doesn't live in volume. It lives in choice. Mastery isn't in eloquence. It's in economy. Say less. Mean more. Reflection. There's a point in training when the sword stops feeling heavy. That's when the student realizes the weapon isn't external anymore. It's the mind. Every disciplined act, every pause, every breath, every moment of observation is sharpening that invisible blade. We used to think self-mastery meant never feeling anger or fear. Now we know it means not letting them command the army. That's the sound of mastery. The storm's still there, but obeying your rhythm. Epilogue. The modern strategist. We are all generals of our own attention. Each day begins with limited troops of energy and focus. Where you send them determines whether you win or collapse. Sun Tzu taught that the wise commander avoids what is strong and strikes what is weak. In modern life, that means ignoring the noise and strengthening what is still. We've learned to treat focus as sacred ground. Guard it, defend it, because the world will always try to invade it with urgency disguised as opportunity. The strategist of the modern age doesn't live in mountains or monasteries. He lives in inboxes, deadlines, relationships, and screens. His enemies are distraction, ego, and endless comparison. And yet the path to victory hasn't changed. Awareness, timing, restraint, patience, personal closing. We're not monks. We still fail, still react, still rush. But every day we return to the same practice. Pause, observe, choose. Some days that choice feels like nothing. Other days it saves everything. The battlefield now is internal, but the warrior remains the same. Still learning, still falling, still standing again. The goal was never perfection, it was presence. The modern oath. When chaos calls, answer with clarity. When the world screams, reply with breath. When anger rises, observe before acting. That's the creed of the modern strategist. No banners, no armies, just awareness in motion. And if you forget, if noise wins for a day, remember, the war continues tomorrow, and awareness always regroups. Final reflection. Strategy in silence isn't about retreat, it's about returning to what's steady inside the storm. So take one more breath. Let the noise fall around you like rain on armor. Move only when you are ready. Speak only when silence can't say it better. Together we learn. Together we grow. Together we awaken. You've been watching Echoes of Wisdom, where awareness meets action.